What is up, heroes? It's Midnight Zero, and welcome back to the TGFA. We are going. This is week 3. We're going up against the Washington Weezings. Yes, I remember the team name this time. Oh, and of course, joined with
Max. Before we start, I like to point out if I sound weird, it's because I ate too much sour candy, so my mouth is like really numb right now. So, just like to point that out.
Okay. But anyways, looking at his team, first of all, some threats. We've got Binacle, we've also got Binacle, and he might even bring Binacle. So, like, I don't know.
But I'm so terrified of Binacle. It sweeps our entire team. Like, we have nothing for it.
But in actuality, Megazard X is a monster. That thing hits so hard. Klefki for hazard support and status support, and Gengar. Gengar is such a monster, such a
we
problem
had nothing
for our team.
for Gengar.
Yeah, and like you're hearing about these offensive threats, but then you get to his Yoooo monster. He's got Crest, Melodic, or Melodic, however you want to say it, Snorlax, and like then you get Registeel, Credilli, Lantern, Dusclops, like some serious bulk going on.
Yeah.
And like if you have a counter to it, he can trap it with Dugtrio. So like there's a lot going on with this team.
Definitely,
But,
yeah.
Anyways, the first thing that came to mind though was our Infernape. And what exactly we were thinking was, well, this thing puts in so much work against a lot of his team. Close combat hits a lot of his like walls really hard, usually 2-hit KOing them. We have Black Belt because we are going to be spamming close combat more so than anything else, and it won't always be super effective, so we want that extra 20% of damage, and same goes for Iron Fist. We have Flare Blitz for Klefki, pretty much, and then we have Swords Dance, and at +2 we 2-hit KO Cress. And Flare Blitz hits something like Dusclops as well, which doesn't get hit by close combat. And then we were trying to think of like what other moves we'd want to run, and we were thinking U-turn maybe for initiative, but we ended up deciding on Mach Punch because if we Swords Dance and we have hazards up, and he brings in Dougie to try and trap us, +2 Mach Punch KOs that, and if he wants to try to paralyze us with Klefki and it's already like low on health, we could Mach Punch it.
Definitely, yeah.
Get some damage before it does that. Or if, Zard DD's up, we can hit that with Mach Punch.
Also,
like a effort.
Cacturn, if it sets up, it's also a very good, like, Mach Punch just to kill it. Like, a Sucker Punch won't kill us, but it's good to, like, just not get the damage down on Infernape. Anyway,
same with Binacle, Shell Smash is up.
Yeah, man.
But,
I'm so scared of that.
That's why we got SD, we've got Flare Blitz, Mach Punch, CC. Flare Blitz, Oko's Klefki, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the things we want to talk about is that Klefki can Thunder Wave so many of our Mons. And we don't really have a lot to stop that, so later Mons will help deal with that. But it's okay if we let our Infernape get T-Waved just to get rid of that thing with a Flare Blitz. As far as our speed goes, I believe we outspeed Megazard X before it Dragon Dances, so we can 2-hit KO that with close combat, actually. Do a lot of damage. And if we're at +2, regardless of whether or not he like Mega Evolves, we still 2-hit KO him. So, yeah, we get around those games, which is pretty nice. And the HP and defense are just whatever we didn't need for attack and optimized for Stealth Rock.
Yeah, like usual. So.
Yep. So the next Mon.
Next up is Mega Scizor making a return. Because Mega Scizor can really put in work here. Priority Bullet Punch is very useful because it's like very powerful. So Cradily can't take it that well. Even if Cradily is a bulky monster, +2 Bullet Punch will do quite a lot to it. It also
+2 BP Oko's Hitmonlee and
Dugtrio. Dugtrio isn't really a big problem for Scizor anyway, but it's just good to have. Same goes for like Cacturn. It doesn't take +2 Bullet Punch that well, so we don't have to take the Sucker Punch damage there.
Right. Worst case scenario, our speed EVs allow us to outspeed a max speed Cacturn and anything.
Oh yeah,
obviously.
That's true. Yeah.
So
Bug Bite will just be fine then.
Yeah, so that if it's like got a lot of HP, we can just Bug Bite it and maybe take a Sucker Punch, but not have to risk taking like an HP Fire or something like that.
Yep. Superpower, since Reggie still kind of walls Bug Bite and Bullet Punch both of our stabs, Superpower is there. If we have like a +2 up, it will still do a lot of damage to Reggie's Steel.
Yeah, Superpower
and
hits
Snorlax
Klefki
too.
hard.
Yeah,
With
Klefki
SD,
as well.
like Klefki can't really do anything to us, so we can just actually set up on that, and we outspeed it. So if it tries to like paralyze us in like the last turn after we like I don't know SD a couple times, our BP will actually outspeed. Superpower does a ton of damage to it after we boost up. +2 BP, Oko's Gengar. Bug Bite does a ton of damage to Cress. Same with Melodic. Superpower does a ton to Snorlax. And this thing can put in a lot of work if we get an SD up. This thing could be a late game sweeper. I think Superpower does 50% or so to Megazard X as well, so that thing can't even switch in too safely on it. And if we get to +2, +4 maybe, our Bullet Punch is doing 40, 50, 60% too. So there isn't a lot of this team that can take this on.
Yeah, it's also maybe our best like Gengar switch in potentially that it can switch in on a Sludge Wave in case we have something later on in, and then we are immune to that. And a Bullet Punch will do a lot of damage to Gengar, and since we're so scared of Gengar, we need some damage on it. Even then, a Shadow Ball won't do too much, maybe around half. So.
But like, if we also have Scizor in on Gengar and he's like a bulky Wisp set. We died a Hidden Power from a Life Orb Gengar. But if we know he's bulky Wisp, we can take a Wisp. Bullet Punch before the Wisp will do 65 to 75%. So that even after the burn, we have a solid chance to KO him with a burnt Bullet Punch afterwards. So, yeah. That's about it for Scizor. We were thinking maybe Momentum, but like there are a lot of Mons on his team that Scizor could potentially set up on. As they're maybe trying to set up or something like that. And while he's got a couple Curse Mons like Snorlax and Registeel, our SD allows us to set up faster than his Curse would. And those Mons typically don't do a lot to us with stuff like Body Slam or like Iron Head, whereas Superpower is going to do a ton.
Yeah, for sure. To both of them.
Yep.
Miltank as well. So.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right, Miltank. Moving on, we've got good old Crocodile, Tanaka Gundam. And we weren't really sure what to do with Crocodile, but this was like my only way I could think of to beat Gengar. So we've got a Choice Scarf Crocodile with Moxie. We'll get into Moxie versus Intimidate later, but moves Knock Off to hit just about everything hard. It does about 50% to a max defense Cresselia, which is ridiculous. How bulky that is. Earthquake, just about Oko's Megazard X. It's got a good chance. I think it does 95 minimum. It hits Klefki hard if it's not Magnet Rise. It hits a lot of things hard, really. It Oko's Hitmonlee. It hits Credilli pretty hard. It hits Registeel pretty hard as well. And it's immune to Thunder Waves, which is really helpful against something like Klefki. And now the most importantly, Pursuit. If we have Crocodile in against Gengar, the only way that Gengar comes out alive is if it stays in and gets a Focus Blast critical hit, or if it has a Focus Sash and tries to switch out. Those are the only ways it survives if Crocodile is in against Gengar, because we outspeed and Pursuit, if he doesn't switch out, does around 75% or so. So even if he burns us, we'll KO him with the next Pursuit. If he tries to switch out, we'll do 100%, well over 100%, and we'll KO it unless he has a Focus Sash. And we're okay with letting Crocodile get burnt. So this is like one of the few things we can do to actually beat Gengar. So we're gonna have to play really aggressively with Crook to not give Gengar that free switch. It's kind of like he's got Dugtrio to trap some of our Mons, like Infernape maybe, or one of the later Mons. But like this is like a trap for Gengar. And our speed is to outspeed. What exactly are we outspeeding again? I think Hitmonlee.
Scarf Hitmonlee it was.
Yeah, we're outspeeding Scarf Hitmonlee. And
which is good.
Megazard X after a DD.
Yeah, Scarf Hitmonlee also dies to Earthquake, so because of its pitiful defense. Also, every immunity they have to Earthquake it's very weak to Knock Off as well, which is amazing.
Which is going to lead to some like mind games.
Yep, for sure.
So for monsters like Cresselia, where Knock Off only does like 50% or so, if later on in the game we can start to whittle a lot of his mons to the point where they get 2-hit KO'd, maybe OHKO'd by Knock Off, We have Moxie so that at +1, we actually beat Cresselia 1v1 if after like rocks damage. Where we hit it with a hard knockoff, and then it can't, even after losing its item, take more knockoffs well. So...
Yeah, we also put rocks on there. It's kind of weird on a Scarf set, but
it's our only manner of getting rocks up.
Yeah, we needed rocks somehow. Because Dugtrio can be Sash, very, very common thing there, and Charizard especially. Like for Charizard, we don't want, if it loses 50% on switching, that is amazing.
That's wonderful. And his only hazard control is Rapid Spin on Hitmonlee.
Yep, that too.
Only hazard control. So we're gonna try and keep this alive as long as Gengar is alive. But if Gengar is dead, we can afford to take some risks with trying to get up Stealth Rock, or maybe take a hit to get Stealth Rock up.
Yep.
Especially if Hitmonlee is dead. But, anyways, the next member of the team is...
It's Mr. Clean. Just a not kind of normal physical defensive mon, because that's usually what Rotom Wash does best. Right. I think we brought it because Mega Charizard X is such a scary mon, and this can stop it. It has Volt Switch, so we have some initiative because the only immunity they have is Dugtrio, but we are also a water Pokemon, but we do not have Hydro Pump. That will scare them out. They will probably think we have Hydro Pump, so it's not like they're staying in anyway.
Right.
We also have double status conditions here. Toxic is mostly there for the bulky monsters like Cresselia. Yeah, and T-Wave is pretty much there for Sard and Gengar too.
Yeah.
Putting it on Gengar could be very useful as well. So, and Pain Split is just there to get some health back.
Yeah.
We decided not to get a Hydro...
With bulk investment, we take a +1 Flare Blitz from Zard and can T-Wave it, which is really nice, making this one of our, like, if not our only switch into Zard X after it's Mega Evolved. And T-Wave, puts it to the point where, like, it can be beat by Infernape or, like, later Mons, or it can, even if it's DD'd up, Crocodile can hit it with an Earthquake, which is really nice. Toxic is really helpful against his bigger walls, especially Cresselia, which will be really important in poisoning, so we can get some chip damage on that over time. Volt Switch is there so we can get stuff like Crocodile in, where like we can just start a knockoff spree or go for some Earthquakes, or bring in Infernape, get some Switch initiative, etc. Pain Split because, well, he's got some really bulky mons with some huge HP stats, and a lot of times they're going to have to be recovering against Rotom Wash, which like can't really do a lot of damage to them. So that actually gives us a huge opportunity to heal up with Pain Split.
Yeah, they also have two Heal Bell users, so if they bring either of them, which is Miltank and Lantern, we should probably get rid of them as soon as possible because a lot of our team revolves around statusing them. Because there's a lot of bulky mons here, so...
A lot of bulky mons.
Especially since we have 2 status conditions on Rotom Wash right now, so... Get rid of those Cleric Pokemon as soon as possible. Speaking of which, you can... go to the next Pokemon now.
Yeah, the next one we got is Sylveon, the only thing on our team that learns Heal Bell, which is like super necessary. I know we've been talking a lot about we don't really care if Scizor gets burned, we don't care if Crocodile gets burned, we don't care if Infernape gets paralyzed, and that's only because we need to stay in against a lot of the monsters that would status them to KO them or to get some good damage off, and we know that with Sylveon we can Heal Bell up later. I wasn't really sure, do we want a defensive like Cleric Sylveon or an offensive Sylveon, because if we're offensive we can hit a lot of stuff with Psyshock, HP Fire, HP Ground, and Hyper Voice, and we hit a lot of stuff really hard. But if we take away some of those moves, we get access to stuff like Wish and Heal Bell, which would help support our team a lot, as none of our team has recovery really. So passing Wishes to Rotom Wash, or maybe even Scizor or Infernape as they get worn down over time, would be really nice. And then I was thinking, well, everything that we couldn't really touch from an offensive standpoint, or we need to run something like HP Fire for, we could just Calm Mind up and eventually hit with Hyper Voice. And so we're running full physical defense, so that we live 1 Flare Blitz from Megazard X, and Hyper Voice does 50%, so after a couple Calm Minds it'll OHKO actually, and if not, it'll get some good damage off. And what else? Against Klefki, which could totally set up on us, we can just set up with Calm Minds, and I think at like +4, +5 or not, we we take down Klefki really easily. But if he tries to paralyze us, we can heal Belt off. If he does like little play roughs or flash cannons, we can wish, and they're going to be doing progressively less with Calm Minds. And after 2 Calm Minds, we take on Gengar too, which is really helpful. And if we're at +3 or like +2 or +3 as Cresselia comes in, we beat that thing with Hyper Voice. And there isn't really a lot on his team that can like just set up on us or allow us to set up. And if that happens, we'll get some switch initiative and we'll get some good damage off on a lot of his team. So we need to keep this thing healthy, especially if Klefki and his other status users are alive and our Mons are status, because we could always get a worst case scenario heal Bell off to free up the rest of the team pretty much.
Yeah. I think we're also immune to Charizard's Dragon Stab, so we can switch in on that, and if necessary, take a Flare Blitz. That's why we have a lot of HP, so it will lose a lot of HP back, and we can also, as I said, we live 1 if we're at full. And then maybe a Hyper Voice can finish it off because, oh my god, Mega Charizard X is a very big threat.
Yeah, it's a monster.
Yeah, there's not a lot of things that can really handle it well.
Sludge Wave, we take a Sludge Wave as well from Gengar. And I think we do like 30 to 40% with an unboosted Hyper Voice, but obviously as we Calm Mind once or twice, we're taking a lot less from Sludge Wave and we're doing a lot more with our Hyper Voice. So after 2 Calm Minds, we can actually wish up on Gengar. An offensive Life Orb Gengar, by the way.
Yeah, and it won't be taking hits forever, like
Speaking
even
of which,
with Black Sludge.
If he brings Gengar, he's probably going to bring max speed because it would speed tie with our Latios.
Yeah.
And
I don't think
because
they
we
can
don't want to
afford
risk
that.
speed ties, we didn't bring Latios.
Yep.
The last one we did bring, though, was...
I had to check a notification. It was your waifu. Finally, we get to bring this thing. I was actually very excited about bringing this thing. Another physical defensive mon. As I said earlier, this team revolves a lot about
Zardex.
Stacking, also Zardex for sure, but also getting a lot of their team status in some way. So bringing Toxic Spikes, while they have, let's see, like 4 immunities, potentially 5 with regular Charizard.
Right.
It's still very useful for stuff like Milotic, Snorlax, Dusclops especially. Yeah, for sure. We also brought Spikes, of course. Like, that will do a lot of damage if we get all Spikes, and they keep switching, which they most likely will be having. They most likely have to do later on in the game. That will do a lot of potential damage, and also Gunk Shot can hit stuff like Hitmonlee very well because we kind of wall Hitmonlee in a way. It can't really do much to us. Yeah, for sure. And Gunk Shot, his defense is so low, so Gunk Shot will probably just 2-hit KO, I'm pretty sure.
This also punishes him for Rapid Spin if he ever decides to go for it.
Yeah, because we have Rocky Helmet, which means Mega Charizard X will do even more to himself if
Zardex
he
wants
Flare
to
Blitz.
kill Garbodor, it needs to kill itself in the process.
Yep.
Because Flare Blitz 2-hit KOs us, but because of Flare Blitz recoil, 2 Rocky Helmet hits and aftermath damage, and taking 1 Gunk Shot in between those Flare Blitzes, it'll die after killing us. And if it doesn't want to get the Flare Blitz recoil, it'll go for Dragon Claw. In that case, it takes 3 hits, and it'll take 3 Rocky Helmet hits and 2 Gunk Shots, which means it'll die after aftermath as well. So
yeah. I think Garbodor will most likely, like, you might not see it, but in the background it will do probably the most work out of all of our team members with that hashes stacking and just a lot of damage that you don't really notice until after the game. Like, it's really impressive actually.
For something like Crocodile and like Scizor after +2 or Infernape after +2, they're not OHKOing a lot of things, but after they've been whittled down, little extra chip 20-25% damage over time, maybe with like poison after getting hit. They're going to be picking up a lot more KOs a lot more easily because of this damage. And if they're taking a lot of this hazard damage and poisoned, they're going to be forced to recover a lot more, which gives us chances to set up or get switch initiative, which is really helpful for us. Also, this is going to be in against a lot of threats, or just like bulky threats, or something like Registeel, maybe Melodic, maybe Cress, etc., which can take this on, and in doing so, we can pain split up on those to get a lot of HP back.
Yeah, we need to be very careful about Dougie though. That's like the only physical Pokemon that this can't really take on that well.
Right, we take 1 EQ, but that's it.
Yeah,
so
1. and it doesn't even take Rocky Helmet damage from EQing, so
Right.
it's very scary. We need to be very cautious about that, but I think we can handle a Dougie. Since you've used Dougie before, you know,
I know
how it works, so.
Yeah, hopefully. You never know, though. You never know. We'll just have to play careful. We'll have to, scout out, see how aggressively they're playing with their Doug trio. Maybe catch it on, a couple switches and get some good damage on it. Of course, we're going to have to play really offensively. A lot of our Mons, like we said, can only take one Flare Blitz from Zard, so we're going to have to make sure we keep switch initiative where Zard doesn't have a chance to set up, right? Where if Sylveon's in against it, like, we can't really do much more than just Hyper Voice. And if he tries to DD, like, he's going to die to 2 Hyper Voices and we'll, like, end up living. But we need to force him to attack and to essentially kill himself with recoil and maybe even sacrifice him on for it. So it'll be tough. We're going to have to play really carefully around Gengar. We might have some good opportunities to set up against Klefki, especially with Sylveon. We can probably set up against a couple of his Mons, his bulkier Mons, as they try to set up alongside us, supposedly tanking hits. You'll notice we have 3 physical walls, and then we have 3 physical attackers, which is, like, kind of ridiculous, but for the time being, like, that's all we actually really need. So it sounds ridiculous, but I think it's what's going to work. And Gengar is such a threat. Klefki with spikes and all, like, we don't have hazard removal on our team, and we're not planning on switching a ton. That's why we have setup Mons. If we're going to switch and, like, come in over and over, maybe we'll just stay in one time, take a hit, go for SD, and then get some good damage off with Bullet Punch or Close Combat or something like that.
Yep. If Klefki is out and it starts Hash stacking, I just want to go into Infernape. Like, I don't care about it.
Yeah, Infernape immediately, and then
just kill it.
The T-Wave and just go for Flare Blitz. Flare Blitz will do a ton of damage to whatever wants to come in, and if something does come in, then we can play around. I think we're going to want to try and get up our Toxic Spikes ASAP. Maybe like 1 spike, but we want to get Toxic Spikes. We want to make sure that when we're getting up our Toxic Spikes, we get 2 layers up, because just 1 layer, while helpful, won't be nearly as helpful as 2 layers, as these bigger walls try to stay in and recover or set up against us. So yeah, we're going to want to try and get up our hazards ASAP and play carefully around Gengar and Zardex, and that should be a good way for Infernape and Scizor to clean up. But of course, we'll see what happens when the battle actually happens. But got any last remarks?
Good luck to Caden and Jeff if they're watching. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, I guess I should mention that they've brought a lot of wacky sets in the past. So, like, we're gonna have to play aggressive, but also play kind of safe to, like, scout for what kind of weird stuff they might be bringing, which is kind of scary in and of its own right. But
Screen Klefki can also be pretty annoying, but
yeah, they like reflect. They like reflect on their Klefki
a lot.
But like, also that means we just 2-hit KO with Flare Blitz as opposed to 1-hit KO.
Yep.
But
yeah.
But anyways, we'll see you guys in that battle. But until then, this has been Midnight Zero, and this mission is complete.